If you want to see amazing tulip fields like this in the Netherlands, don't go to Amsterdam and don't expect Keukenhof to look like this either. In today's video, I am sharing everything you need to know about Keukenhof, as well as how to have the tulip trip of your dreams in the Netherlands, based of course on personal experience. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com, and this channel is all about practical travel tips from someone who's been there, done that, so be sure to like and subscribe if that sounds like your kind of thing. First, let's debunk some common myths about Keukenhof and the tulip fields in the Netherlands. Over the past few years, social media has been really bad at perpetuating inaccurate information about tulips in the Netherlands, so let's just go through a few quick things to make sure we're on the same page. First, if you want to see sprawling tulip fields, don't go to Amsterdam. I know this feels like common sense since Amsterdam is a city, so where are the tulip fields gonna be? But year after year, people are posting videos like, in 2 months, this is what Amsterdam is gonna look like, and showing these sprawling tulip fields, which of course gives people very unrealistic expectations as to what the city is gonna look like. Of course, there are going to be tulips in Amsterdam during the tulip season. There are some really nice tulip installations around the city because they do have their own tulip festival, but at the end of the day, it's not going to look like this, so make sure you have your expectations in check. Second, if you want to see the sprawling fields, don't just go to Keukenhof either. A lot of the promotional materials around Keukenhof show you those giant colorful fields, but in reality, Keukenhof is a garden. It's a manicured garden with different floral displays. Granted, it's a beautiful garden and one that's definitely worth visiting, but a lot of people go there expecting to be able to frolic through fields, and that's just not the experience at all. Finally, it's important that you know that you can't just walk into any tulip field and take photos. Of course, you have to remember that these tulips are farmers' livelihoods. So at the end of the day, if you actually want to get those nice photos in the fields, picking tulips or frolicking through the fields, you do need to book a special experience for that. And I'm going to outline a few options for that at the end of the video. All right, with those must-knows out of the way, let's move on to how to get there. Keukenhof is located in the South Holland town of Lisse, about 40 kilometers away from Amsterdam. One of the most positive byproducts of Keukenhof's popularity, though, is that it's incredibly easy to reach, with many different options depending on whether your priority is convenience, price, or speed. Staying in Lisse will, of course, be the priciest but most convenient option, with Hillegom being a decent base as well, as that's only about 10 minutes away by taxi to Keukenhof. That said, you can easily get to Keukenhof from a variety of major Dutch cities, including Amsterdam. Here are the most common options. Option A is booking a tour. Tons of companies offer this option, and weirdly, they sometimes offer deals that work out to be even cheaper than the official combi tickets from the Keukenhof website. So I'll link some options below. Many tours will even offer bundle deals with other activities so you can maximize value for money. Option B is catching the Keukenhof Bus, or a regular bus. The Keukenhof Bus, formerly known as the Keukenhof Express, is a special bus that takes you straight to Keukenhof. Departure points include the Haarlem Central Station, Leiden Central Station, Amsterdam Europaplein, and Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. So you can easily get to Keukenhof by hopping on one of these buses. And they even have combi tickets where you can buy the admission and bus ticket all in one go for a better deal. Depending on where you're staying though, it might be better value to catch a regular bus instead. The website 9292 is a great trip planner that can help you figure out the best route. Finally, there's also option C, which is to drive. Though beware that you will need to pay separately for a parking token, which is €9 for a regular car and $12.50 for camper vans. Though be sure to book this in advance. Next, here's a quick overview of the Keukenhof map so you have an idea of what to expect, combining clips from my 2 visits in 2019 and 2023. While the layout of the garden doesn't generally change much, be sure to grab a free map at the entrance or available online so you can navigate more easily, because this place is huge. We'll start with entrances. There are 2 main entrances to Keukenhof. The main entrance in the south, which is where taxis and buses can be found, along with the main parking area, as well as an extra entrance in the north, which is open on busy days with more parking. Now, the main highlight of Keukenhof, in my opinion, is its beautiful outdoor floral displays, spread across a variety of manicured gardens. That said, it's easy to get lost and overwhelmed if you just walk around without a plan. So I'd recommend anchoring your explorations around the garden's main sites and pavilions. Here are some highlights and iconic areas. If you're arriving at opening time, which I highly recommend, From the main entrance, it makes sense to actually skip the first few pavilions near the front and head instead to one of the busier main sites like the mill, also known as the Keukenhof windmill, probably the most photographed spot in the garden. This windmill can be found on the far right side of the park with tons of beautiful bulbs planted right in front, some cute photo ops like giant clogs, and yes, you can head inside to enjoy a nice view from its terrace as well. This is also where you can catch an electronic whisper boat at additional cost that whisks you around on a tour around the nearby tulip fields. Though, to be honest with you, I don't completely think it's worth it. On the opposite end of the garden to the left is the other main area, the Wilhelmina Pavilion, which overlooks the large pond area of Keukenhof, often photographed in the Walking on Water installation, which is a series of circular stepping stones over the famous pond. This pavilion is mainly just home to a restaurant and some bathrooms, but it's definitely one of the busier parts of the garden, so worth doing early. You'll also see some nice sights walking around here, including the original entrance gate of Keukenhof, which they used back in the 1950s. Of course, besides admiring all the beautiful gardens along the way, there are some indoor pavilions worth admiring as well, when you need to hide from the cold. Starting in the northeastern corner, there's the Beatrix Pavilion, which is home to Keukenhof's Orchid and Anthurium show, and many cute photo ops. In the middle of the garden, you'll find the Wilhelm Alexander Pavilion, the largest one at Keukenhof, which is filled with all sorts of colorful flowers and photo ops, as well as a sit-down cafe. Though the food options are pretty questionable, so maybe shop around before you commit. Just outside of this pavilion is a cute Miffy-themed play area and a mini Miffy Pavilion, where you can get some dangerously cute souvenirs. From there, you're just a short walk from the Oranje Nassau Pavilion, which is home to a variety of floral displays and a little theater that offers flower shows throughout the day, plus a fun labyrinth just outside. Finally, I would probably save the Juliana Pavilion for last. This is where you'll find an exhibition about the history of the tulip. So it's more of an educational stop, and usually less busy than the garden portions of Keukenhof. So best to save until after you've gotten all your photos. Directly south of here, you'll also find the Irene Pavilion, known for its iconic dandelion fountain and sometimes a barrel organ that churns out different tunes. This is again more of a practical stop with bathrooms and some food options, but from here you're just steps away from the exit. So from a tactical perspective, again, I would recommend going as far away from the crowds as possible once you enter. So if you're there at opening time, a lot of people will stop in at those front pavilions first. But in my opinion, it's smarter to go past them and revisit them later, choosing to go instead to the busier areas before the crowds hit. Now let's move on to some practical tips. First off, if you can, make sure you are staying somewhere relatively close to Keukenhof. A lot of people choose to visit Keukenhof as a day trip because the Netherlands is quite compact, but if you want to beat the crowds, you should be staying as close to the actual gardens as possible. That way you can just roll out of bed and get there before the day trip crowds arrive. The first time I went, I stayed in Lisse, which made walking to Keukenhof super easy. The second time I stayed in Hillegom, which was a little bit farther away, but still very convenient. The main thing you want to do though is avoid weekends and holidays because that's when it's going to be the absolute busiest and also the most expensive in terms of accommodation as well. Now related to this tip is to just arrive as early as possible. Even if you're not staying close to the gardens, do try to get there for opening time because that is when the gardens are going to be at their least busy. And trust me, you have not seen crowds like this. Keukenhof can get so busy even though the gardens are massive. So do keep that in mind and try to beat the crowds and get there as early as possible. And also make sure you're bundling up warm. A lot of people don't realize that springtime in the Netherlands can still be very chilly and very cloudy and rainy sometimes as well. I think the reason for that is you see a lot of really pretty pictures of influencers in their dresses frolicking in the fields, but that doesn't really paint an accurate picture of what the weather is actually like. It can be quite warm, you do get the occasional sunny day, but you do also get those days when it's bitterly cold and you definitely need a thick jacket. So just keep that in mind and make sure that jacket is also waterproof. Another must-do is to get a timed entry ticket in advance. These days you have to have a timed entry ticket or they won't let you in, so do make sure to get that before you arrive. That way you can just walk right in. And once you do arrive, if there are any additional activities that aren't included in the ticket, let's say for instance the boat ride, do make sure you walk in and make a reservation for that as soon as you can, just because the time slots for those boat rides can fill up so quickly. So if you don't get your slot immediately, oftentimes you'll have to be waiting hours before you can actually get on a boat, which is a little bit annoying if you're trying to plan your day. That said, having done the boat ride myself, it's not the most exciting boat ride in the world. You kind of just go around these flower fields and you don't get to get off the boat, you don't see a ton, and the commentary is a little bit cheesy, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you're really keen on boats, so just keep that in mind. I would also make sure to bring your own food and drink, which is 100% allowed. So there are quite a few food and drink options at Keukenhof, but for the most part, they're quite overpriced and actually not very good either. So be sure to bring your own snacks, at least bring your own drinks, and then that way you can save quite a bit of money and also not have to deal with kind of the lackluster food options that they have there. Now, finally, let's talk about ways that you can actually get up close and personal with the tulip fields, which I feel like is something that a lot of tourists are after, and then they feel like they can get that in Amsterdam or at Keukenhof, but that's not the case. Luckily, there are a lot of different options for frolicking in fields in an ethical way, so I'm just going to outline some of them now. The first is to book a photo experience so you can go frolic in fields guilt-free. I personally went to the Tulip Barn in Hillegom and it was so much fun. I can highly recommend it. And it also wasn't very expensive, so it's definitely worth doing if you've always dreamed of getting those nice tulip photos and just kind of being among a sea of pretty tulips. And besides that, honestly, you have to keep in mind that tulip fields are such a big thing in certain regions of the Netherlands that once you get out into the countryside, you do see them everywhere, even from train stations, from the train, from the bus. So a really nice way to admire them from afar is to rent a bike or maybe book a bike tour. That way you can just cycle through the countryside and just admire the tulips, which is really nice. Or if you want to be really extreme about it, you can actually charter a helicopter to see them from above. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful, and be sure to like and subscribe for more practical travel videos just like this one. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.